Is this going to be the beginning of the episode, just us talking about sparkling water? Or are we going to leave this at the beginning?
We probably won't leave it in. I'll probably cut it out, honestly.
We'll see. We say that, but then we could leave it in,
I might use it as the tag.
and then like the listeners will be like, "Oh, this is like behind the scenes stuff. This is like the stuff that they would cut out, but like they leave in," and they'll be like, "It's more real. It's more honest." And they'll like get a little dopamine hit, and they'll be like, "I need to listen to all of these because I'm an insider. I know what's really going on here."
I'm not a songwriter. I guess that's okay. But the intro is sucky. Or so they all say. David, this one is for you. 'Cause writing a song was easier to do. But if you hate this one too, I might just cry. 'Cause these 3 chords took me hours to write. Okay, next time I'm probably just gonna do whatever it was you suggested. I don't have to go back and look at what this sucks. Okay, well, podcast.
Welcome back, all of our insiders. This is a very special bonus episode.
About sparkling water.
We're talking all about sparkling water. No, but we are talking about the Umbrella Academy because I binged the 2nd season last week, and then I just needed someone to rant to. I have written pages of notes.
Oh wow, this is going to be like structured.
Oh no, these notes are not structured.
For a second I was scared. I was like, I'm not professional enough for this.
No. I figured we'd start by just talking about in general the season and our thoughts on it, and then go into spoiler territory.
Okay, I'll start. Not as good as the first season, right off the bat, in my opinion.
100%.
And I don't think it was bad.
No.
It wasn't at all bad. In fact, it was quite good. If this had been, I mean, story-wise, it obviously doesn't work to be the first season, but if it had been the first season, I'd have said, oh, that was really good. I'll watch the next season.
Yeah, I think it still had something about it that made it special. And that's something that confuses me because I did feel like the first season there was something to it that was like, I can see where this is going, but I don't think they're going to do that because that just seems so crazy. And then they would do it and it'd be like, what? They went that far. And then this season it was like, I knew where they were going. And then they did the thing I was expecting. And it wasn't all that crazy because I was expecting it to be crazy. And so it didn't have that. And yet it still caught me. It still hooked me to the point where I was like, I just need to see the next episode.
Yeah. I think it's basically just the height of bingeable TV.
Absolutely.
They know it's going to be released all at once. And they make it so like where you just have to like see immediately what happens next. It's like a long movie.
Yeah, it really is a long movie. It's really hard to talk about it without spoilers, so let's just put a spoiler warning here. Spoiler warning for season 1 and 2, and then just talk about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, right off the bat, Diego, so much better this season.
He was a little bitch last season.
Yeah, Diego, first season, not good. This season, though, much cooler. He actually did something of importance. He went and he got like the stuff from the commission.
Yeah, although honestly, he wasn't the one doing that. It was just kind of happening to him, but it was better writing on their part. They like utilized his character better.
Yeah. Although in general, the first season is better written because they utilize all of the different elements of each character more fully.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And this season, they almost completely avoided time travel stuff, aside from the setting, it was a very like straightforward story until the last episode, really, like the last one or two.
We're gonna talk about the time travel stuff, because they play very fast and loose with the time travel and kind of just ignore it. And in season 1, you know, there was a lot of time travel, obviously, because that's what the commission does. But it was very consistent about like things that could change history are then stopped. People who could change history are stopped before they change it. Whereas this season, we somehow learned more about the commission and yet less, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I'm less sure than ever I know what they are supposed to do. Like, I don't know what their job is.
Oh, and there was something where it seemed like they were going to explain more of it, where they had the whole training video. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. But then he didn't even watch it.
Yeah, he
just
didn't watch the
left.
training video. I was sad.
I was like, oh, this could be a really cool, like funny, stylized bit that they have right here. But then they just cut away.
It seemed to me like they don't want to explain how time travel works in the world of the universe that they've made. Because when you explain how time travel works, you back yourself into a corner, right? Where you have to always abide by the rules that you've set in the universe that you're in. And Avengers Endgame tried to do that by explaining the rules of time travel as different from the pop culture rules of time travel, right? By having Tony be like, that's not how time travel works. But then inevitably they messed it up by having it work that way later.
Yeah, they...
So I think what they were trying to do is purposefully just leave out any sort of explanation as to what was happening. But by doing so, they didn't explicitly give us any rules, but they did talk about it enough that you can imply rules. And I am so lost.
Well, they did have the whole thing about when you're next to yourself, what
I hated
happens.
it.
They gave the rules for that.
That episode I hated so much. Just the parts with 5 and 5.
I liked old 5, actually.
I like the actor who played Old 5. I really hated the writing for that.
I liked old 5 much better than young 5.
I don't know. I feel like the character who plays young 5 has been with the character longer enough that they really know, like, he knows what his character would do.
Yeah, but it comes to a thing of, like, I don't necessarily like that character as much as the one that the new guy was playing.
And I mean, that's fair. I really don't like that because I felt like it boiled down to just a giant fart joke. Like, I saw it coming and I was like, no. Please. That always happens when there's a time paradox. Can't talk to your past self or whatever. I can't stand it. I can't. It bothers me.
I think that just shouldn't be a thing in time travel stories, because it would be so cool if you're just going back and telling your past self stuff. That'd be a fun dynamic to work into a story.
I think people feel like it then causes like a circular story, right? But that in reality it would cause a time paradox. And by doing that, you have created a paradox that has no beginning and no end.
Well, no, it would create a new chain of events, right?
But if you don't go back and tell yourself in the past, then you wouldn't have told yourself in the past in that timeline. So if you want your timeline to stay intact, you have to go back and tell yourself in the past, because you were told by
I'd say that the
yourself in
person
the future.
who goes back in the first place ceases to be, and then it's from that point the new person who has been told by that person who ceased to be.
Okay, that's a totally different time travel. There's so many different ways of doing time travel. I don't know. So I did have a lot of questions about their version of time travel, though. Let's see. I will say I really did like that this season. I liked the way they handled Vanya. I thought they were going to just have everyone be kids at the beginning of the season, so that was a little bit confusing, and I was like, why would they do that? That's going to be terrible. But then I did like the way they handled Vanya's storyline with her just losing her memory. That felt it felt like a clean way to deal with that. Because if she had remembered everything, she wouldn't have just gone back to okay with all of her family. But by giving her that time where she didn't remember them to get to know them better before she has all those memories come back, it feels more reasonable that she would accept some of the responsibility for what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because, yeah, like what you're saying, it gives her the time to see like how much these people actually do care about her without like the preconceived things that are put upon her from like the past experience. Especially with Ben. Ben stand out this season. Ben was great.
Yeah. I feel like in season 1, the dynamic between Klaus and Ben was like really fun, and I really liked it. And I was like, oh, I hope they play with that more. But then in season 2, it felt like they just made Klaus a big dick. Like, he's just so mean to Ben. He tells everyone that Ben's not there. And it's like, okay, why? Why did you bother?
Yeah, they kind of made Klaus worse than the first season.
They reversed his arc. Like season 1, he's like a drug addict, alcoholic, and he goes through like his stint in Vietnam or whatever, and then comes back and is like changed, right? And it feels like they just kind of threw him into the 60s and was like, okay, but no more. You're now straight edge, but like you didn't learn anything at all, apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. Also, I feel like there was that conversation in season 1 where Klaus is talking to Reginald Hargreaves in heaven, right?
Yeah, in that weird episode that was pretty good, but like weird.
I liked that episode. I liked it a lot, but they didn't do anything with it. All of a sudden, they're in the past, and that apparently doesn't matter anymore. Like, he's really not doing anything. Like, Reginald Hargreaves says like a bunch of stuff about how he's dampening his potential, but then he doesn't do anything new. The only thing new he does is at the end of the season, he gives Ben like physical form briefly. He gives Ben physical form briefly at the end of season 1. And then Ben possesses him, but then Ben also possesses Vanya. So that's a Ben thing, not a Klaus thing.
This is just a brief gripe. Right at the beginning of the season, when 5 shows up in the 60s, and there's the whole thing where the Soviets are invading the United States. That scene was so cool.
So cool.
And then nothing the entire season was as cool as that scene.
Here's the thing. I think they were like, we really want a cool epic battle, but it's just not in the budget. So they just spent all of the budget on that one shot.
And it was great.
It was crazy. It was awesome.
All of them doing their thing. It was like, oh, yes, I'm here for it. And it just wasn't. It set the expectation so high. But like,
I feel like this season had a couple of fatal flaws for me, though, that made me go, I don't know if I want to bother watching. But like I still kept watching at the end of each episode, but like in the middle of an episode I'd be like, I can't with this. And I feel like the main thing was that I was constantly ahead of the plot. I always knew where the plot was going to be in the next beat. Like they never surprised me. Like is it Lila is basically her power is copying other people's powers.
Mm-hmm.
But I called that in the episode where Five and her are in the warehouse and Five keeps teleporting and she's not there anymore. I was like, well, obviously she's teleporting and it's because her power, she's one of them. Her power is to be she's a copycat. She's, you know.
Wow, you're smarter than I am. I didn't figure that out then.
It felt very reasonable to me that would be where they were going because it fits in with the universe, right? There were 43 virgins that gave birth on the same day. There's bound to be others out there, and it just makes sense that the commission would have one. I thought
that she was one of them because the idea of the handler was like, ooh, I'll raise a child. Doesn't make sense unless there's an ulterior motive.
No.
So then I thought about it, and then I was like, oh, she has to have some sort of power.
I will say AJ caught me off guard. I kind of forgot about him from season 1.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot he existed, and I was like, wait, there's just a fish in a bowl that talks? What?
I also forgot about Allison's kid until she got back to the present. And then I was like, oh, yeah.
I mean, she mentioned her briefly a couple of times.
7 episodes. I do remember it. The first time she mentioned it was like 7 episodes in. And I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I forgot that happened.
Yeah. I was a little bit, there were a few things that confused me. So like, why didn't the commission know about the new apocalypse? Right? Like they have the infinite switchboard and there's people monitoring it all the time for changes. So how come they didn't see the change when everybody got pushed into 1963 and all of a sudden the apocalypse was changed? Because Herb is like, what do you mean? Of course he wasn't assassinated. Assassinated?
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
So, and that's why I was sitting here going, is the commission outside of time? Because if they aren't outside of time, then how do they do that? How do they do the job that they have said they do? And if they are outside of time, why did nobody know? Because that happened before she took over the commission.
Yeah.
I was very confused.
For our listeners, I just shrugged. I realized immediately afterwards that no one could understand what had happened, but I shrugged. It was a sort of visual.
Okay, let me.
From now on, when I shrug, I will always go with it.
Okay, here's my thought. So when Five is talking to Five, or talking to Luther about old Five, he mentions that he could cease to exist if he doesn't go back to his past.
Yes.
Right? Which is where I got the thing I was saying about if you go back to your past self, then you have to come back to your past self, or you didn't go back to your past self, right?
Yeah.
But he goes back with the knowledge about Vanya that Luther tells him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then if he stopped the first apocalypse, they wouldn't need to go back to 1963.
Well, I think the whole thing with the first season was no matter what they do or what they know, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And I think that this season sort of retconned that, which is
But they stopped the apocalypse. when they go back to the day after the apocalypse doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, in this season. And that was kind of like just like the commission was like, it won't have happened. And they're like, it won't have? And then it's like, okay, cool.
That's so weird to me. I don't understand.
But like, and it seemed like the whole thing with the first season, because they were jumping around in time and things continued to be the same way no matter what they knew. And that's like kind of the whole thing about it, where they were helpless even though they had these powers.
But I thought the idea was that the commission was keeping things from happening in a different way, and that's why everything happened the same way no matter what.
I thought it was more that like the point of the season was that
nobody can change destiny, I guess.
Yeah, that even though they're these like superpowered beings, that the universe, like, it's more than them. Like there are things that are out of their control no matter what, no matter who they are.
Okay. Well, okay, so at the end of the season we find out that they did stop the apocalypse, right? Mm-hmm. So if that happened, that means that they didn't go back to 1963. So why didn't they all disappear from 1963?
I don't know.
Or why didn't Five transform into his older self, since he gave his older self the formula?
I don't know.
And then when in end of season 1 he time travels them all back to 1963, why don't all of his family members de-age?
At that point, had he figured out the formula that he gives to older Five later?
Yeah, he's supposed to have. He figures it out in that scene, but then says it's a long shot. So, but he figures it out, right? And he gives it to his older self. So either he lied to his older self, and that's why he doesn't go back into his older self's body, or
they should all be younger.
So I'm very confused.
Maybe he did figure it out, but he specifically didn't tell his older self just to be mean and simultaneously mess things up for him.
I don't know. I was sitting there at that scene going, okay, so he should now be the older version. But it felt like they just didn't want to switch actors, which, I mean, I wouldn't either. You don't want to switch actors during the middle of, 2 seasons into a show.
I did feel like it would have been a convenient way to get rid of Aidan Gallagher, because I dislike him. He's not a likable person.
I love him so much. He's my favorite part of the whole show.
Better than Klaus.
In season 1, no. In season 2, yes.
Well, in season 2, I think my favorite part would have been... Yeah, Diego. I like Diego a lot this season.
To be honest, I didn't really like any of them in season 2. I thought Five was the only one thinking logically about a lot of things, but then in a lot of ways he was also just being a complete dick.
How dumb was Allison to get married? That makes no sense.
I don't think she had a choice.
She didn't have a choice in getting married?
Well, I mean, like,
she was... wedding.
I mean, just like, she's stuck in the 60s, right? In a place where she's completely out of place. And in order to feel like she has a normal life again in that world, she kind of had to find someone to provide for her. Because that in that time, it's a lot harder to find a job that paid well for women, and especially women of color. So I think it was kind of like doing what you have to do to get by.
Well, not even. Because she's specifically choosing not to rumor. She's like, I don't do that anymore.
I mean,
And
but
she could have
she
had,
wasn't rumoring at during season 1 either. She was doing that. She barely uses her powers for both seasons.
and it's so frustrating. And I realize that it's because she's so powerful, but like, it's like, she could just fix this, but she chooses not to.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they didn't really go into enough depth about her powers to make us go, oh yeah, it's good she doesn't use them. I feel like what they were trying to do was to tell us that they have unintended consequences, where if you don't phrase things exactly right, you can cause things you didn't mean to happen. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you know, I heard a rumor, you stopped, and then what stopped, you know? Their heart stopped, they stopped what? Stopped doing something, stopped living. I thought that was the idea, was like, if you're not very specific and can go very wrong, but they just never show us that. So maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, and then there was the weird thing in this season where she was like, I forget exactly what she did, but she did something where her husband was like, whoa, like, that's not cool.
She told a cop to stop beating him up.
Well, no, she did that, but then later she was like showing him how she can use her powers. Oh, it was the coffee
The
thing.
coffee cup thing, yeah.
And the guy was like, oh, you can't do that. And then I was like, okay, so is the thing that like, if she uses them, then she's gonna like misuse them because she can't control herself? Or
I think what they were trying to show, because like she's not paying attention and then she like snaps out of it. I think that they're trying to say that it corrupts her, which is weird. It's a weird side effect of something you're born with, to just corrupt you.
yeah, and it's not with any of the others. It's not like, oh, 5. Once he starts teleporting, you who knows?
I think
gonna talk to too many dead people.
I think the idea is that she is a very vengeful person, just in general in life, and so she feels that she would abuse it, and she has experience abusing it. I don't know. I feel like it's a flaw in the writing, but I also don't know why.
Yeah. Also, I thought it could have been an interesting thing if she had rumored that guy into being her husband, because she knew that she needed protection in that time.
Yeah, that would have been a more interesting storyline.
Very interesting dynamic to explore, and the misuses of her powers and what that means for her character, but they didn't. And he asks, and I was like, oh, okay. She said no. She could have been lying, but she said no.
I don't know. There were a lot of things where it's like, the season was good. I really liked it. I just felt like there were some things where it was like, there's things like that where it's like that whole plot line doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
The plot line with the dude that they're staying in his electronic shop or whatever doesn't really go anywhere.
No.
Huh?
I liked that guy though.
I liked him too. I felt like that plot line didn't go anywhere though.
Oh, the Swedes, far less interesting than the commission agents from the first season.
Oh,
so much better.
Weird thing about the commission agents. Okay, so like jumping to the last episode where they have that big battle in the field. Okay. Really cheap, just cheap VFX throwing that out into a field. It looked fine, but like that is the cheapest way to make a crowd, is just do a field and throw a bunch of animated people out there. Like that's
animated people that all wear the same uniform.
Yes, I could totally do that in Blender. But the weird thing about that shot is they all come into the field, and I was like, why are there people in animal masks? Because I completely forgot from season 1 about their like inflatable metal masks that they wear, because we haven't seen one all season 2. Not a single one. There's not one. There's no commissioned
Yeah.
goons chasing them. So I just completely forgot. And then all of a
But
sudden
there are
there's like,
commission goons. They're just
well, we see a bunch of commissioned people, but not like chasing them. Like we see them in different contexts. And like Lila's not really commission.
the Swedes.
Oh, the Swedes. Well, I mean the Swedes. But like they're not wearing masks.
Yeah.
Like,
they
we
don't
don't-
look the same as ones.
There's not people wearing masks like that. So when we were in the field, I was like, what is going on? Why are they? And it took me almost the entire fight to go, oh, right.
A trope that I don't like in movies and shows and things like that is the menacing character that's chasing you that doesn't talk. It seems lazy. They're like, what if this person is just scary and nothing else? The only time I like it is in Raising Arizona, where the whole thing is that they're poking fun at it. They're like, oh, it's the menacing,
Yeah.
it's the bad guy.
Right, yeah. I thought the Swedes were okay. They weren't terrible. I felt like they were the only thing that saved their storyline for me was that at the end, the guy was like, yeah, I don't care about you, and left them alone. Right. But yeah, I don't know. They felt like there were a few things going on there. The fact that they drove around dressed as milkmen,
Uh-huh.
it made me feel like they were just going for an aesthetic villain, which is kind of what you were saying with like the villain that doesn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like they were just going for, this is what a specific type of villain looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't feel like they had any reason to be there. Like, I know that like she sent them out because some reason, I never figured out why. I don't know what her point was. What was her goal? What was the handler's goal?
The handler?
Yeah. I never
It wasn't
figured
clear.
that out.
And she's dead now, so I guess we'll never know.
So then I'm presumably like the fact that Harlan has superpowers back in 63 delays the date of the 43 virgin births. That's how I read the ending. Like the Sparrow Academy with the 7 children with Ben at the forefront. I read that as the fact that there was a superpowered individual in the past delaying the 43 virgin births in time.
Also, how does it make sense that he has Ben now?
That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying. So he has Ben now. Wouldn't he have gotten the other ones too?
Okay, so my theory is that, so we see 7 children, right?
Uh-huh.
With different powers. My theory is that it could go 2 ways. One being that the existence of superpowered individuals in the past causes whoever started, because I'm assuming that someone created the 43 virgin births in season 1.
It was sort of implied that it was Reginald with like a
Yeah.
weird alien thing.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking. So my thought is that the fact that there are already superpowered individuals delays that process, and so the 7 Hargreaves children are born at a different time, so they're younger now, and he collects them in a different order, and they have different superpowers. Because presumably Reginald has had enough time, if he is the person who, started that whole thing, then he has had time to look at different powers and abilities and pick out which ones he likes.
I don't know. I didn't like that ending.
The other thing that it could be is that just like in season 1 ends with them all de-aging as they travel back in time. This was just a cool little thing that they thought they would do that's like, remember the 7 children that were little? Here they are. Which doesn't seem right, but also seems like something that would happen given season 1's ending.
It's sort of just a bad choice and leaning into something that comic books do a lot, where it's we have this one team of the good guys, so we need to have the opposite but evil.
But it doesn't seem like they're evil.
It kind of did.
It seemed like they were hardened. I don't know.
The thing is that it doesn't make sense for them to be evil, but it seemed like, oh, these two teams are going to fight, right? It doesn't make sense because they're raised by the same person under the same circumstances. They should probably turn out somewhat similar to the original Umbrella Academy. It makes sense.
Except for that Reginald now knows how his children turned out, right?
Yeah.
And also he didn't have Grace. Because Grace leaves him.
Well, he made a robot Grace either way.
We don't see a robot Grace.
Well, I'm saying, like, in the first season, it's not the real Grace. It's not like...
Yes, but we assume that their relationship went farther than it did in this timeline.
Well, we don't... Okay. You can't assume that he didn't have Grace, though. He could have still made a robot Grace.
Does he have Pogo?
He should still have Pogo.
Okay, but like in this season they showed that like Grace was really attached to Pogo. And that Pogo was really attached to Grace.
Are you saying that she broke up with him and then she took Pogo? Because Pogo wasn't hers.
It just feels like... It feels like the idea is that they were raised differently because he didn't have Grace or Pogo. But, maybe. I mean, he probably does. I don't know. It's very... the scene with him talking to Five at the bar is a really good scene, but also it inevitably makes me go, what was the point of this scene?
Well, it pointed out a flaw to me where he was saying, oh, think smaller. And I was like, why didn't Five think of that before now?
Yeah, that's something I wrote down too. How is Five, what, 57?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And he's not like, what if I go back and I knew what just happened right now?
How has he never been like doing something for the commission and had something go wrong and then been like, but what if I just tried to rewind like 6 seconds?
Yeah. It seems like that's the chief use of his ability.
And then like it feels cheesy to me that like when he jumps time, he basically creates a portal and they all jump through it. But when he rewinds time, he like literally rewinds time. And so the question there is like, why on earth did that not? That seems more logical than like trying to build a portal. Like that's more akin to like the Flash running back in time, right? He's running through time as it exists. So why has he never tried to like walk through time? Does that not make more sense?
I don't know.
In season 1, doesn't Five time travel 3 times before he gets to the apocalypse?
Yes.
Yeah, so like
doing like little jumps.
He's done it before.
I don't know.
Also, if he needs to get his whole family back to 1963 and he got them, or back to 2019 and he got them to 1963 all by himself, why does he need a briefcase from the commission?
I read that sort of as like he's not very good at it, and it ended up with them all scattered throughout years. So then he needs something that's more consistent.
Okay, but he time traveled his past self back to 2019 before the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So couldn't he have opened a portal and them all have gone through one at a time like that, instead of trying to do the thing from the end of season 1 where they were trying to get them all at once?
Well, it seemed like it was just time traveling with other people in general, right? I don't know that it's the quantity of people. I think it's that it's with other people.
So can you not do them one at a time? I'm still confused.
Yeah, I'm saying it's with another person. So it'd be, even if he's doing it one at a time, it's still another person. Right?
But like, he opens the portal to 2019 and they kick past 5 through the portal, right?
I don't want to go back to this scene. This scene makes
It's the crux of the problem I have with their time travel.
okay.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So
I feel weird criticizing this show too, because they probably did a much better job than I could have ever done. But like,
I mean, they did a really good job. I feel like anything I criticize is something that was written much better than I could have written it, for the most part. Like, if something's on Netflix, they're definitely a better writer than I am, because I've never written anything for Netflix.
I wouldn't go that far. There's some bad stuff on there, John.
Okay, that's fair. But like, I just mean like in general,
Yeah.
when criticizing a piece of work, whether it be film or music or whatever, it's usually you're criticizing someone who's done a better job than you could have, for missing things that you see post the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they've written out the plot and then they make the details. And it's hard to go and change the plot to make the details match.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to someday write something even close to as good as The Umbrella Academy. For sure.
What did you think of Lila as a character?
I liked her before she was evil. Like,
Was
she
she
was
ever
always
evil?
evil, but like,
I had the opposite opinion. I said, was she ever evil? Like, I never read her as evil. I read her as like used and manipulated, but not like evil ever.
I mean, I just mean like when we didn't know she was deceiving Diego,
Uh-huh.
I liked
Did
her a
we
lot.
ever not know that?
Well, I mean, we always knew she was using him. But like when they were escaping from the psych ward, we didn't know to what extent, I guess.
Yeah, but it was kind of like, okay, this person is lying to him very clearly.
It made me feel more like, did you ever see Legion, the
No.
FX show about X-Men?
It's in my Hulu list, but I've not seen it.
Okay, I didn't see season 1 and I heard it wasn't as good, but season 2. Season 1 is fantastic. One of my favorite superhero shows that I've ever seen. It is a trip. And the way that they were doing like the psych ward stuff reminded me a little bit of that, where I was like, this is kind of cool. It reminded me of, I think the character's name is Lemmy. I think the character's name is Lemmy.
Okay.
Aubrey Plaza's character in Legion, which is really cool. And I can't say much more because I don't want to spoil Legion for you, because I think you should watch it because it's awesome.
Okay.
But then they just didn't go that route. So
Well, I don't know what that means, but maybe one of our listeners do.
probably not. I feel like almost nobody watched Legion.
I've only heard good things about it. Like, everyone that I've heard talk about it likes it.
Season 1 was fantastic.
Aubrey Plaza plays Lenny.
Yeah. Lenny. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was Lenny or Lemmy or... Anyway.
Let's see, what else? Vanya's love interest, very predictable.
Yeah.
Not very well fleshed out. Just kind of a stereotype of what that would be.
Yeah, it felt very much just like, okay, but like, what if the 1960s had a lesbian couple?
And then they were like, and this is how it would go, because this is the stereotype.
And they'll move to the country and start a cottage. Great. Cool.
Let's see. Her husband, I found.
Oh, I have so many things to say. Could continue, but I have so many things to say about her husband.
I found him to be a scene stealer. I thought he was really well played.
Okay, so I was going to say they present him to be like this evil villain man, right? But until like near the end of the season, he's not even done anything horrifically horrible.
He's just a little bit annoying. He's like a Coen Brothers character.
Yeah, he's a little bit annoying, and he like went and got drunk at a strip club, right? Which is like the fatal flaw that we give all men in.
We've all been there.
It's the fatal flaw that we give all like male characters that we want their wife to turn on them, right? And it was just like, it was kind of played up, and I was like, okay, they were acting as if he was evil from the very beginning, and I was like, he's not evil, he's just kind of like he's a man of his time, right? And he's trying to do the best for his family. And then it felt like a weird switch when all of a sudden at the end he was like, and I'm gonna kill the cow that starts the disease. And it was like, okay, what? But then you also have to be like, okay, but like also you are like, you're cheating on, his wife is cheating on him with you. Like,
Yeah, like,
come on here.
it doesn't, the lengths to which he goes don't make sense, but from like a base perspective, you're like, I'd be upset too.
in this circumstance, he's the one who's been wronged.
Yeah.
But like, it's not like they never like made him out to be abusive.
Yeah. There were things that he did where they played it up like he was, but then I was like, that was relatively innocuous under these circumstances.
Yeah. I was like, I don't want to be like, oh, he wasn't bad. Like, he had flaws, but like also he was a person of the time, and then they were like, and he's evil. And I was like, wait, how?
Yeah, like it seemed to like vilify people who were from that time for being from that time and behaving in a way that people were expected to behave at that time. Like, surely the things aren't good, but it's not him. It's a greater problem.
Yeah. I don't know. Very weird to me, the way they framed him from the very beginning.
But the actor did a good job. Like that actor.
Yeah, he was really good.
My favorite scene with him, though, was the first one, where he's at the breakfast table going on about, like, his sales stuff. It's like, this guy's good. I like this guy.
That scene reminded me of my dad, because my dad sells windows and doors, and he will, at family gatherings, just go on and on about the people he's sold windows to, and it's like, this is not interesting. Please stop.
It reminded me of, what's his name? Uncle, what's his name?
I knew you were going to say that, from Dairy Girls.
Dairy Girls.
Yes.
Hang on. This is going to bug me that I've forgotten his name. Is it Declan? No, something like that. Talk while I look it up.
Uncle Colm?
Oh, Callum.
Callum.
Yeah. And I love that character so much.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, like I said earlier, a Coen Brothers character. Because they're so good at writing humorously boring people.
Yeah. He does feel a lot like a Coen Brothers character. He doesn't really fit the rest of the writing, honestly. He's kind of a standout in that way.
He kind of fit the writing for, I forget her name, but the girl from the first season who worked at the coffee shop. What's her name?
The girl at the coffee shop? You mean the one that the commission guy gets with?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember either of their names at the moment.
What was Coco?
No, it was Hazel.
Oh yeah, I always mix
And
up Coco and
Agnes.
Hazel's names. Oh, Agnes. Okay, I knew it was an old lady name, as she is an old lady, but she seemed like she would fit in the same world as the husband, whose name I can't remember either. I'm not very good with the names in this. I know what happens.
It was Carl.
Carl. I don't remember the bad guy boyfriend from the first season's name either, although I did like him a lot. He was good.
Peabody, right?
Peabody?
Wasn't his last name Peabody?
Oh, that was his last name. I was going to say as a first name, I'd remember that.
Yeah.
Imagine dating someone named Peabody. What was his first name?
I don't know.
Yeah. This episode will just be me looking up various characters' names.
Leonard
Yeah.
Peabody. I don't know. I did really like the scene where they were going over, where Klaus was just talking and he was like, hey, at least it's better than a serial killer boyfriend. And she was like, serial killer boyfriend? It did feel like they included that dance scene, though, just because the dance scene in season 1 was so good. And it's like, this dance scene does not need to be here.
It seemed kind of like in X-Men Apocalypse when they do the Quicksilver scene, because everyone loved the Quicksilver scene in Days of Future Past.
That Quicksilver scene is terrible. It looks awful.
In Days of Future Past or in Apocalypse?
In Apocalypse.
Okay.
The one where he's getting everyone out of the exploding house.
Yeah.
Looks awful.
Yeah, the first one was objectively better.
The first one was a really cool scene because it's like, that's how you want super speed to be portrayed. Like, that's how you want to see it.
And they framed it really well.
Nobody does that. Nobody. And that scene was set up really well. It had great props. It was fantastically just choreographed and
the
done.
actor has great charisma to sell it as well.
And the VFX are great, right? But in Apocalypse, it was like, and we stuck him on a green screen with an explosion in the background. Isn't it cool to see a person acting in front of a still picture? Don't you love it?
Basically encapsulates that entire movie.
I haven't seen the rest of the movie. I've just seen that shot because I heard there was another Quicksilver shot, and I was like, oh, that's got to be great. And then I watched it, and I was like, that's absolute trash.
Oh, it's them ripping off themselves, but worse. It's like when a band has done like one really great song, and you can tell that they're going to try and make the same song but different, and they're like, oh, it's just not as good.
Yeah. There were... For some reason, that made me think of the times where The Flash actually did good stuff. Because the Flash TV series has had a few episodes where the VFX were really good and they showed like super speed in a really good way, but like very few and far between. Tut tut.
Once again, that first scene, the beginning of the season, great VFX shot. Loved it. Everything was just
yeah. The chaos
Ben
raining
on the
down.
roof with his tentacles as a ghost. That was so cool.
And like Vanya stopping that huge tank shell. Beautiful stuff. It really was fantastic.
Allison actually using her powers.
Right? and Klaus was actually doing stuff because he was raising the dead soldiers.
Yeah, Klaus was in his like cool cult trappings, raising an army of the dead, which was like so cool.
I feel like that could be just that shot on its own could be like a selling point for them to get more money, where they were like, look what we can do if we have the budget. But I don't know how much they actually had, so I can't say that they were under budget either. But like usually TV shows aren't given that much.
It's got to be the most popular show on Netflix right now. I think it's one up Stranger Things at this point.
Well, it's because Stranger Things hasn't released something in a year.
I mean, even so, I think it has a more engaged audience than Stranger Things because Stranger Things is kind of
Stranger Things is
undercut
slow
itself.
and meandering.
It
doesn't have a point past the season, right?
It undoes its own emotional stakes as well.
I think a lot of shows do that. But I feel like the Umbrella Academy doesn't really give you a place to stand emotionally. It doesn't tell you where you should be feeling. And so it can't undercut itself because it never told you what it was.
And yeah, I think the best part about Umbrella Academy is it's just fun, like popcorn TV. You sit down and you're like, I'm here for a fun time, a bit of a spectacle, and you get that. And I think
Yeah, I tried to once I finished Umbrella Academy, I tried the next day to sit down and catch up on Doom Patrol. And after sitting and watching like 6 episodes in a row of Umbrella Academy, it was really hard to not feel like Doom Patrol was dragging its feet. And that's like the most similar show I can imagine currently.
I would say The Boys is somewhat similar in that it explores superheroes, but from a way where it's more about like the implications of what it means to be a superhero, which is more what the first season did rather than the second season. But
right, okay. I don't know. I'm in the middle of trying to figure out what I'm watching next because I need to finish Doom Patrol Season 2, but at the moment I'm not interested because I know where it's going and I just don't care that much.
And in my continued series on this show of shaming you for not liking The Boys enough, I brought it up, so here we are.
Oh yeah, here
Don't
we
get
are. Here we are. I watched the first episode.
It just gets better, John. It gets better as it goes. It just
I mean, I'm planning
escalates.
on watching the rest of it. It seemed pretty good. I just haven't been watching much of anything, and then when I do get around to picking something, oftentimes I get part of the way through and go, I'm so bored.
Hang on. You just said that you liked it. That was not the impression that I'd received.
That I liked what?
The Boys.
I didn't hate it. I'm planning on watching the rest of the season.
See, you'd gone from I liked it to I didn't hate it, which is a noticeable difference.
I don't know. To me, there's shows that I love, and then there's shows that exist, and then there's really, really bad shows.
Okay.
It is a show that exists, and I will probably watch the rest of it at some point. Right?
There's one scene that happens in it that I've been tempted to just show you so that you want to get to that point in the season because it's such a good scene.
But then that's gonna be like the wasting the good part, just like Umbrella Academy did with the tanks and.
Exactly. I want you to reach it naturally. But I also feel a little compelled to just like, here, this is amazing. You want to see more of this? like a drug dealer. I want to give you a little bit so you get hooked and you come back to me for more.
It takes me a long time to get into shows most of the time. Like Umbrella Academy was one of those ones where it was like somehow it hooked me and I just was able to watch through it, and as soon as it came out, I watched through it again, the second season. Most shows I have a hard time getting into. Like the only other show that has hooked me that well was Orphan Black. And I watched 4 seasons in a row, just nonstop in like a year.
I'd say the only other ones for me would be like, obviously The Boys. Over the Garden Wall is in a different category because it's one. If you watch all of it, it's the length of a movie.
Right.
Dairy Girls. Duh.
Oh yeah, well, season 1 of Dairy Girls did that for me. Season 2 of Dairy Girls, I still haven't finished. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I have a problem of a show that I really, really like. I have unrealistic goals for the second season because the first season wowed me so much that then the second season I'm like, it's going to be amazing. And I'm just really excited for it. So then it can never live up to what I have in mind.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say there's a couple of shows where when I started watching them, the second season or the third season was already out. And so the second season didn't disappoint me because I was able to just watch through it and get to the third season, where they usually end up coming back just as strong because you know what to expect.
I think that's ideal. Like coming to a show once there's seasons of it is really nice because you don't differentiate.
Right.
You don't say, oh, well, this one's not as good as that one. Because you're watching it all at once and you don't.
Well, I also think it's that when a show hooks me, like Dairy Girls season 1 was like, I just watched all of it in a row. I was in a place personally where it meshed with what I wanted to see and like how I felt at the time. And I was in like a mental place where it was the perfect thing. But then when season 2 came out, it wasn't the thing that I wanted or needed from entertainment at the moment. So it just ended up dropping off because it wasn't what I cared to watch at the moment. Whereas when you start a show and you really like it and there's already a bunch of seasons, you just watch the entire show at that same point in your life where you're really into it, where it's the thing you like, right? You don't have time to change as a person or to fluctuate in taste.
Yeah, another thing, with another one that hooked me was Barry, where there were the first 2 seasons, I watched it all at once. And for me, it was just perfect all the way through. Loved it. And I don't know, because I'll have time to anticipate the third season, and there'll be some space in between having watched those first 2. I don't know if it'll be the same. I hope it is, because it's a great show. But
yeah. And I mean, that's because for example, I did watch all of Orphan Black from season 1 to season 4 in like a couple of months. And then it took a couple of years for them to put season 5, the final season, on Prime. And when they did, I tried to watch it and I couldn't get through the first episode of the season. I never finished the first episode of season 5 because it was so boring. And it's just like between the time that I finished watching season 4 and I got around to watching season 5, my taste in shows had changed enough that I just can't get back into it.
yeah. we should leave just a long period of silence so that the people listening will wonder, are my headphones broken? Did it pause? Is it over?
Pope.
Well, it has to go on longer than they'd expect it to. So that they start even second guessing themselves. Like, is this the joke that they thought it was?
I don't know how long that is though. Oh, I have a timer here. We'll do it again.
5 minutes maybe.
5 whole minutes.
Like one of those songs where it has a silent bit in the middle of it, where you're like, is the song over? And you look at it and you're like, oh no, it's still playing. There's just a long period of silence in the middle of this song. That's a very specific thing, and I don't know if you have any songs like that.
I do. There's a lot of songs like that in my life, and I hated them all for it.
I like it in one song because it's what's the word? A concept album where it's about a person who's losing his memory and he's dying, and then it's in the song where he does die. So then once he dies, it's silent for like 2 whole minutes, and then it goes into like this jubilation of him reaching the other side, and it works really well. So I like it in that song, but other than that, I don't. About the lights just went out on my keyboard. What? Now it's saying, hang on, we're going to leave this in the podcast just to be clear, but as I'm recording this, you know how like there are the under lights that
Yeah,
come
the
up
backlight
on,
on
like,
your
a MacBook?
keyboard.
And now I'm pressing the button to bring the lights up, and it's giving me a little circle with a line through it.
Interesting.
And we know that this is the content that our podcast listeners want. Give them those dopamine hits because they're insiders. They know everything. They know about my tax fraud. They know my social security number.
Indeed. So many things.
Do you have anything else on Umbrella Academy before we get too far away or end it or anything?
This is so ranty. I think we've covered everything. It's very long, but like it really doesn't have much to say. I think we've covered most of it. I will say that
I think
go ahead.
that space was far more it was utilized better in the first season. There were lots of plot lines going on, but you cared about all of them, I think. In this one, it seemed like they had episodes to fill, and they were manufacturing plot lines to fill those episodes.
Yeah, I felt like all of the plot lines were more cohesively related in season 1. And I really did like Hazel and Coco and that whole aspect of the commission in season 1. And I felt like in season 2, they really didn't use that at all, to the point where I constantly forget that the Swedes even existed.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because they weren't characters.
When they first showed up, I was like, is it Milkman Man? And then I was like, wait, that's a DC character. So.
Hang on. Can we acknowledge the fact that they gave a whole funeral scene to a character who hadn't spoken? And they played Swedish Hello by Adele.
Oh, I hated that. They did 2 terrible covers after another. They did a bad guy cover.
The bad guy one wasn't as bad.
It was the thing that made me go, seriously? And then immediately after, the very next song they played was a Swedish Hello cover. And I was like, what on earth?
It took me a minute. I was like, this sounds weirdly similar to Hello by Adele.
as soon as it came on, I was like, they're playing Hello, but it's gonna be a shitty cover. What shitty cover do we get this time? And then they started singing, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Which is weird because the covers that Gerard Way did for the first season, so good. They're
All of
like
them.
great songs.
All of the covers in the first season are fantastic.
But no, it started playing, and I was like, this has like a similar chord progression to Hello by Adele. And then I was like, what? I was I was paying attention to what was happening on screen, and I was like, what are they saying? I was like, what are those words? And I was like, wait, this isn't English.
It drove me crazy because I did know, like, you had tweeted about there being a B movie reference, and I was like waiting for it, looking for it, and that comes in the episode after this episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this episode happens, and it's got those two covers back to back, and I was furious. I was like, these are horrible. Why did they do this? And then the B movie reference was in the very next episode, and I was like, no, it's perfect. Leave it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I was so happy about the way it was said. It was perfect.
So,
Do you like Jazz 5?
There was no reason. Why?
I thought it was great.
And in this timeline, it raises the question, does B movie exist? Has the handler seen it? Is she referencing it on purpose? Maybe the commission got rid of B movie and she was just making a private reference to herself. She's like, so I won't know about this. But Jerry Seinfeld did this awful movie.
That one time when we released Jerry Seinfeld into the children's movie market.
We actually had Coco and Hazel assassinate Jerry Seinfeld.
I was gonna say, for as many like time travel issues I have, there's only one show I think really does time travel well. And it's Dark. So if you're interested in time travel and want to see what I think is probably the best time travel show, Dark is the one to do.
And if you're interested in seeing what I think is the best time travel show, it's Legends of Tomorrow, obviously.
Actually, Legends of Tomorrow is a really good show, and they get time travel
No,
right
it's not.
80% of the time.
That was a joke on my part.
I know it was a joke on your part, but I'm saying it is a good show. I like Legends of Tomorrow. It's a fun romp. They went to hell, and that was cool.
But that's because they were bad. They went there because they're bad. The show gods were like,
No, they went there because John Constantine dragged them to hell.
all right, this is...
Anyway, no, you should definitely see Dark. The end is the beginning, which is also the end. So take that as you will. And
I was going to say, like another movie, but then I realized people might not have seen that movie. I don't want to spoil that.
well, tell me, because I don't know what you're referencing.
I don't know if you've seen this movie. I can't say now.
I probably have. You've frozen. Whoa, you frozen. Now you're back.
Oh, you're back. Yeah, you did too. You said you're frozen, and then you froze.
Oh. You should tell me what movie.
Well, no, I'm going to check your letterbox and see if you've seen it. I don't think you have.
Well, but if I haven't seen it, then I'm never going to know unless you tell me what it is so that I can see it.
No, you haven't seen this movie.
Is it Looper?
Nope. I'm
What?
not going to tell you.
How am I supposed to see it if I don't even know what it is?
You'll see it eventually, John. You just gotta watch all the movies.
Is it on my watch list?
I'm not gonna tell you. You can't know.
If it's not on my watch list, how am I going to see the movie?
Maybe once you've forgotten this conversation, I'll be like, hey, you should watch this movie. I'll do that for you, John.
Please.
You'll
please.
never know when it is. I recommend lots of movies to you.
It's true. Please do that. Okay.
No one can know. I'll tell Daniel what it is if he listens to this, even though he doesn't watch Umbrella Academy, so why would he?
Anyway, yeah.
He's seen it.
Cool. Cool stuff.
This is a weird way to end.
Yeah. All right.
And that's where you'll cut it off when I said this is a weird way to end. And then I'll just hard cut. Over.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Promise.